Hi people, it's LEGO CYD 1999, here with my quarter project, and today we shall be talking about the Persian soldiers. No. Not those guys. No. We are going to be talking about these guys, the actual Persian soldiers. So, let's get started, shall we? Now, the Persian army is a pretty famous one, considering its major roles around the same time as the Greeks. A lot of you have probably heard of the Battle of Thermopylae, which was turned into the movie 300. So yeah, they're pretty prolific, and today we're going to cover a couple of aspects about them. Kinds of soldiers and battle strategy. First things first, let's get into the kinds of soldiers they had in the Persian Empire. Now, from my research, I found that they had 5 different major kinds of Persian soldiers. Those will be the ones we are going over today. They are the Immortals, the Achaemenid Horsemen, the Sasanian Cataphract, the Sparabaran Shield Bearers, and the Warrior Archers. All of these were kinds of Persian soldiers at one time or another. First off are the Immortals, possibly the most famous. They were heavy infantry, and their name stems from the fact that if one dies, another would just take its place. They got this name from Herodotus, the father of history, as some like to call him. They were rumored to be 10,000 strong, which is why they could just quickly replace. They also served as parts of multiple different Persian empires at one time or another. Next are the Achaemenid Horsemen. They weren't very heavily armored, but they were formidable fighters, and they also rode on horses, which was pretty cool for the time. Like the next group, they launched shock attacks, which could be used to close the gap between the enemy and them and deal out some damage. Next up is what is essentially the promotion of the Achaemenid Horsemen, the Sasanian Cataphract. These guys were heavily armored. They had armor on their horses. They used scale armor for projectile defense. They moved really fast, which allows them to cause fear and panic in enemy ranks during their shock attacks, which would be used like before. Next up we have the Shield Bearers, who are the front line, and they just take a lot of hits. They have their wicker and animal hide shields as well as short spears, but most of what they do is to block projectiles, and they are incredibly well trained to do so, otherwise there would be a lot more casualties. And lastly, we have the Warrior Archers. They went just up behind the Shield Bearers, and they would rain their volleys over them. They were lightly armored so they could move better, and they carried a wide variety of close-range weapons just in case they need to have some melee combat. During their time, they were renowned as some of the best archers, like there was. And that's it for the main kinds of Persian soldiers. Now let's go on to part 2 with the battle strategies of the Persian army. Introducing the 3-step battle plan. This is the plan that I found the Persians would usually run with, starting with Step 0. Use a large-scale force, because that way you can easily intimidate your foes. The actual Step 1. Have a projectile volley disrupt the enemy behind Sparabara. This way, you can have them sort of scatter around, which leads me into Step 2. After the enemy has been scattered, send in the cavalry to close the gap between the enemy and you. Because you know, when someone's flinched, it's always good. Yeah. Step 2.5 is a little weird, as you get to introduce chariots if you have them. If you have them, now would be the time to use them to add troops into battle and give arrows extra time to fly overhead. And finally, we have Step 3. Send in the infantry to wrap things up, closing the gap even more. This is just to wrap up the battle. The infantry can come in and wreck stuff while the cavalry just finishes up. It's an easy way to end a battle. And thus, we have finished the battle strategy section. So yeah, I hope you guys have all been taking notes, because this is important, as in the next episode, we shall be talking about these even more.